I gotta tell you, the black really contrasts with your pale skin.
Oh, thanks. I really like it.
That's okay. Talk about a lack of melanin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hello, folks. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College, and views expressed on this show are our own, unless otherwise stated, and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the DCCCD. Sorry, I was making sure the right mics are on, and it caught me off guard. Unfortunately, my guest, Dusty, is so blinding to the lens that he's shattered it. Oh, there it is.
Oh, not anymore. I'm better now. He fixed the exposure.
Exactly. You don't want to be overexposed. No. Or maybe you do in philosophy.
Oh, I like that. Really expose my inner thinkings, upon which we're going to be talking about imagination, right?
Imagine that.
Oh, what even? Oh, okay. Man, if you're the voice of KDUX, no wonder no one wants to listen.
It's just that it's the plug in there. All right. Well, listen, much to my dismay, we're repairing the camera, so I guess we're going to have to...
You don't have to look at my big schnoz. Oh, there it is again. Perfect. Side profile, too. Look at that.
That's only because you're a liar.
Oh,
hey.
Well, that's not very nice.
Pinocchio, shout out Italy. Anyways.
Oh.
So, folks, welcome back to the Philosophy Club Radio Hour. I'm here with Dusty. Welcome.
Hey, it's
Welcome
me.
Back.
It's me, Dusty. I still have a show on Fridays from 2 to 3. It is the When the World Turned History podcast from 2 to 3 tomorrow. We're going to be talking about World War I. And guess what? You don't know enough about World War I. You didn't learn enough about World War I.
Probably
because
right.
you think that it was nothing. This is when the die is cast historically.
Oh, gosh.
You don't know enough about it. And I'm going to tell you.
Oh,
it's not your mama's history class.
Well, speaking of die, let's dialogue, my friend.
Oh.
Hey, that's what we call transition. Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you very much. The question... the topic, I should say, is imagination. What is What's the imagination, aside from a mediocre production company that makes horrible films?
Oh,
Imagine entertainment.
a little bit of a good take.
Hey, if you can imagine entertainment, you can imagine this show because it's pretty entertaining.
Can we get him out of here?
At any rate, so anyways, now. We like to do, we kind of dove into the plugs today, and I want to do that. I want to plug that show of yours. It's every Tuesday at 1 o'clock, right?
Nope.
Oh, my bad.
Every Friday from 2 to 3.
Every Friday. And everybody knows that Friday at 2 o'clock, there's nothing you want to do more than learn.
Dang right, especially about World War I. You're going to be learning about people drowning in these trenches.
We're about to drown in the trenches.
Ooh, I'm bright again. Look at that.
Oh, well.
You love to see it.
I mean, I don't know if anybody would call you bright, but
you're
definitely glowing. Hey,
I'm going to come in there.
Can we lock this door, Jack? Welcome, the Third Musketeers here. Do you guys know the Three Musketeers? What were their names? I don't remember. Anyways.
Manny, Mo, and Larry, I think.
The Three Musketeers of comedy. That's us. It's like Aramis, Porthos... Hey, if you know the Three Musketeers,
Porthos,
yeah, that's what it is. Call in if you know the third one.
D'Artagnan is the
he's the fourth
other
one.
Yeah, the fourth one.
Sorry, I don't get this boomer reference.
Ooh, the phones are lighting up, folks.
Ooh, can we get those?
Dusty, you can take calls here through what is it, Skype or something? We've done it before in this show. We had somebody call in, quote unquote, and it was scary because you couldn't see them, so you'd forget they were there, and after 15 minutes they would just talk. I think that was Anthony. And suddenly you just hear this voice from out of nowhere. It felt like God was talking to you. And then you're like, well, no, that doesn't sound like Manzi. Anyways, so any more plugs? As long as we're on the plugs tip. I got a plug. Well, you know what? Let's hand it over to Orlando. Orlando.
Hey, guys. It's me, Orlando. I just wanted to plug Trini's show on Fridays from 4 to 5. I don't know who that is, but, that's the show on Fridays, 4 to 5. Thanks, guys. It was me, Orlando. That was my plug for Trini.
I got to tell you, never sounded more articulate.
Wow, thanks.
Yeah. So Orlando is currently in the middle of
something less interesting.
Yeah, I think the BSA, the Black Students Association, are having a discussion on a film, and I know Orlando likes his film, so he's doing that, and then he's going to come join us later. But and if he doesn't join us, it's because I low-key fired him. Anyways,
I'm
just joking. Hey, Dusty, how'd you like to boost your resume?
Very much so.
Anything else you want to plug? Oh, well, look who it is. The ex-president of the Philosophy Club.
Lock that door quick. Don't let him in. Don't let him in. New president's in town. That's my first order. I wanted to plug. I don't know. Hong Kong, I guess. Not China.
Suntan Lotion 78.
Oh, hey, I took your seat.
I'm not worried about it.
You got to sit in the chump spot
I don't have
now.
assigned seats.
Yeah, there's not a hierarchy there, and where the sitting is. Hey, welcome. So, hey, Orlando, were you at the BSA club meeting just now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Can you guys
there
hear
you
me?
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, it got really tense in what they were arguing about. I got involved a little bit, so I was
Oh,
just like,
nice.
dang, yeah, so I had to stay a little while, so.
Hey, I hear you. It was the movie 13.
13?
What was the movie you were
It
discussing?
was, The Way They See Us or something like that?
Oh, my bad. Wrong.
When they see us, something like that.
I like the poster.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
pretty cool.
What was the debate over? Just quickly, briefly.
Essentially, if there exists, like, institutional racism and how to combat it. And so on and so forth. Wow, what the heck is going on? Yeah.
Just everything I'm instructing Jack to do via text.
Can we make him sound like a racist buffoon, Jack?
Well, that's right.
You don't need Jack for that.
So you were defending institutional racism?
Oh, yeah, of course. I was like, yeah, Professor Manzi taught me.
No, this is literally the podcast that's going to get me fired. Anyways, that sounds like a great discussion to have, though. And I'm glad that we have Philosophy Club representation there. It's kind of hey, let's get a philosophical take on it. And so just out of curiosity, to plumb the depths a little bit deeper, what was the bone of contention? What was the cause
This
of concern?
guy, oh my gosh. What's the topic today, actually?
What is imagination?
Yeah. So let's not talk.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah,
Okie dokie.
I don't want to get into. I mean, we can if you want.
I'm just curious, like, what
so-
is it that's happening? We can plug the BSA.
They used a lot of realty, essentially, a lot of like the ideas of redlining to kind of show how institutional racism kind of does exist. That the value property of like tax property of certain homes in certain areas are lower and higher, and how that kind of affects certain like education value. That some people that live in the lower income neighborhoods don't get as good of an education as those who live in a higher income.
Interesting.
So yeah.
Because education funding is tied to property taxes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. That's a way better topic than ours. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Long-standing debate, especially in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine.
I was lucky enough to grow up with a pretty high property tax at elementary school. I actually went back there as an intern.
Really?
Yeah, for my
cool.
teaching internship. It's what inspired me to be a teacher. But the kids there,
Oh, wow.
geniuses, all of them. They're really lucky. They're really lucky to be funded so well.
I wish I could say the same about my students.
Do you want to get this foot in your face,
Gotta get
old man?
physical?
What in the world?
Dude, you have no idea. I went to a yoga class yesterday. It was a super, like, it was an
You
intense,
got toes in your mouth.
I can't imagine him at a yoga class.
it was an intense, what's called a vinyasa class, which is like, okay, I used to be somewhat pretty good at yoga. All I'm saying is if you went to Clyde Warren Park on a Saturday, they would shout me out over the intercom.
I can't blame you.
Unfortunately, that was back when I was in my 40s. Now I'm in my 70s, and I can't do that anymore. I went to this class at my girlfriend's insistence, and I got to tell you, wow, I can barely lift the mic. I can't even raise my arms, my hands. It's bad, but if nothing else, it did tell me one thing. I'm not as young as I want to think I am. Because my body just can't do what it used to do, yoga-wise.
Shut up, boomer.
Oh, so it's been a bunch of nonsense the whole. Oh my gosh. Okay, time to go, guys. Bye. That was a good.
We were waiting for you, Orlando. Jeez, I'm trying to vamp while you get here.
Sure, that's what it was.
We're still doing
No,
plugs.
you can leave if you want.
I'm playing with you guys. Come on now.
You realize
Sorry.
Jeff and I are both technically millennials, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
by
I
the
know.
way.
I'm calling him a boomer just to make fun of him.
No, because I mean, look,
I guess he's a boomer.
people don't realize this. Kalen is actually my adopted stepson.
Oh my gosh.
But okay, well, continuing onto plugs, I have a plug. Apparently, let me see if I have this right. I was texted by Marion Lefelt, the chair of the art
Kept up in the
department.
basement.
So I guess let me ask you this, Orlando.
No.
Now that you're here, I got a text that said, "Hi Jeff, our clubs are planning a get together on October 29th. Have you heard about this? I requested the Brazos Gallery for that day. And I said, that sounds great! Exclamation point. I'm sorry. That sounds great! I had heard that something was in the works. Smiley face. And then she said, would it be possible to meet from 1 to 2 p.m.? Our officers are talking but wanted to confirm with you. And I said, unfortunately, I teach until 1:50, so no. She sent back tears, and we haven't talked since.
Not even like an emoji, like a picture of her face. She's crying.
So what is this? What is this get together, Orlando? I assume that you're behind this.
When did she tell you this?
On Tuesday.
She wasn't supposed to tell you.
I'm not behind this.
The
at all.
Philosophy Club.
No, I'm not. I think they premeditated it, and then they said that we're talking about it.
I see.
Maybe they were talking to one of the other officers, but not me. But actually, just talked.
There
to
are no other officers.
Oh, no! I just talked to one of them, and they were actually saying, 29th, that they wanted to do something like an art. It's basically what we did with Nietzsche.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. But yeah, because I remember talking with the student whose name you couldn't remember last week. The student that was presenting. She's creating art for our Instagram. But I thought I told her we can't because Tuesdays 1 to 2 is when the art club meets.
So is that
But I teach. Yeah, so students, they go from the art club to the philosophy club.
Do you think it would be too late to just shift that time? Maybe I can ask them, but no, I don't know.
Well, here's the thing: you guys can collaborate while I teach, and I can show up a little late.
Okay,
That's fine. But
10 minutes in.
but here's the thing: it's like without the faculty advisor there, it's not really a collaboration. It's just a giant art club meeting. But I still support that endeavor. Look, if I have to, I want to be a part of the collaboration. I think it sounds fun. But if scheduling doesn't permit it, I'm happy to have the collaboration happen while I teach, and then maybe we can, the collaboration could filter into the philosophy club proper meeting from 2 to 3, maybe something like that.
Take your class to the collaboration.
There you go.
Dude, that's a great idea. You know what? Maybe I will do that. Thank you for finally cutting the camera.
It'll be the highest number of people in the club.
Oh, never mind.
I just want you guys to know, my mom thinks you're all great. So you're all appreciative of my mom. I wanted to shout out my mom. I love you, Mom. All moms out there, big shout outs. Am I right?
I'm adding that to my CV.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I've waited all my life to have a mother say something positive to me. Now it's finally happened. Not mine, but hey, I'll take it.
Oh,
I'll fix it right now.
I'm too bright. It's like an EMP.
Oh man, that's harsh.
Every time it resets, it actually resets the exposure too. So I'm right back to being a ghost.
How's that working?
Pretty well. It hides my horrifying facial features with just iridescence. So so since Manzi doesn't have a voice on the radio, can we talk about important things now? Now that he can't make a fool of himself.
Come on, man, we gotta plug stuff, right?
What are we plugging?
I don't know.
Philosophy Club. Don't take Manzi's class. You're gonna have to deal with this old fart.
Don't take Manzi's class.
2 o'clock to 3 o'clock every Tuesday. EO32.
That's the plug.
The next topic is myth, which I'm super excited about.
Myth versus religion versus legend.
Well, yeah, it's legend. So we're talking about me, basically. It's going to be a big.
myth? Yeah. Exactly. Exactly, dude.
Oh Lord. So that'll be fun. I think there's going to be a lot of overlap with the human need for, quote unquote need for theological justification or for deeper meanings. It's going to be fun.
We got Marcus coming, so that's perfect.
Oh, is he coming?
So, yeah, hopefully he didn't lie to me, but he said he's coming. So
That'd be
Can
awesome.
you give me a roundup on his ethos?
he's very religious. How about that?
Ooh,
That should be a segment.
Perfect.
Round up on the ethos.
And then also
Goddamn
shout out
Skyra.
Psych Doug Psychology Club, because the vice president told me she's gonna have their members come to Philosophy Club next week. So, 2 more.
Also, we can get
Awesome.
the psychology of myth.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you want to just bring that camera in here so they don't have to look at you anymore and they can just look at the homies?
There you go. Exactly.
Am I right?
We've been getting
the
requests
faces
like that
of
since
the
season
Philosophy
1.
Club. Let's go ahead. Dude, go ahead. What is this?
There it is.
I didn't even know that
Homie
was a
solidarity.
I didn't know that was a handshake.
What do
but,
you think it was?
I thought you were like
Am
just
I
pointing
right?
just pointing at him. Yeah.
This big cute.
Orlando
Horribly
literally can't accept
overexposed.
friendship.
Yes, exactly. I'm quite indifferent.
The next topic is etiquette.
Hey. So I'm really excited to hear that. That's I welcome the Psych Ducks. Look, mythology, legend, a lot of that is very psychological, especially if it's coping mechanisms, which is something we'll talk about. Maybe creating stories to provide meaning in your life is a defense mechanism. It'll be interesting.
Oh, we read about that.
Isn't that called
in English?
being delusional?
With that English story? Like, there's one of the theories that the way she explains what happened at the barbecue is with Arnold Friend. One of the students, I think his name's Lucas, had a really good idea that. Well, first of all, someone pointed that Arnold Friend sounds like an old friend. I don't know how no one else figured that one out because that's like
funny.
big brain. Right. But the other kid was like, I say kid, he's probably older than me. He's like, I think that this is a way for this character to cope.
Yes.
With something that happened at the barbecue with an older family member.
Ah.
Yeah, that makes sense for someone like to go through trauma and to explain it by making up another story.
I think
to me,
you're
that
right.
makes sense. I wouldn't know.
This might be a
I haven't been through
conversation
one
for
trauma.
class.
I mean, I did have to look at you, which is pretty
check.
traumatic.
Okay.
Orlando's pointing to the guy who's
Shout
on
out,
next.
shout out, Pops Prunks,
Papa Prime.
or Papa Prunks.
But
you'll like that shit. You'll like that show way more
Oh, censorship.
than ours. There you go.
Oh, there it is.
There he is.
Pops
That's my actual Papa.
Heck yeah, dude. Get in there.
Daddy, please talk to me in reality. Anyway, listen.
Just tune in. You guys.
Yikes.
We're 22 minutes deep. Let's get into the topic.
All right, so I got a dictionary definition of the word imagination.
Let me
I'll
hear
hit you
this.
with it.
Please
Well,
do.
that's
We
settled.
should play that Willy
Hold
Wonka
up.
song. Let's play that Willy Wonka
Hold
song.
up. Let me get
All right, can
my
I say-
voice acting chops in, okay? I'm reading.
He's gonna hit me with the dictionary. He said.
Imagination. Noun. The faculty or action of forming new ideas. Or images. I swear, I can hear you cutting it off. I will end you, old man. This is
I
my
can't
only
hear.
chance.
Hello.
The faculty or action of forming new ideas or images or concepts of external objects not present to the senses. Example, she'd never been blessed with a vivid imagination. You're welcome. That was my demo reel, Dusty Hill. Contact me, id Studios. Contact me, Funimation. I will do anything. Is that copyright?
No.
Can you play that? We might not be able to play
30, 30
fair
seconds.
use, sure.
We played 30
3 seconds. Is all
Okay,
the
no,
time
you're
you
right.
need.
That's a good point.
We'll argue fair use.
Anyways,
If
that
we
was something.
What was that?
That's the pure imagination thing.
Oh.
But I don't even.
No, you can't.
In a world of pure imagination.
Hey,
Can someone cut that mic?
You need to bring a top hat to the next.
In a world of pure imagination.
China.
Wow, exactly. Putin over here.
Well, yeah, Putin, the dictator of China.
No, that's not what I was referring to.
Well, okay. Real question: is this a good working definition for? Is this how you think of imagination?
This is the definition. I
Hey, if
wouldn't say it's
Google
how I
says
think.
it, that's right.
And the last one, I forgot what's your name over there, gray shirt.
Gray
Forgot the other voice in the
shirt,
podcast. All right, gray shirt boy, gray shirtman. What'd you say is a definition of imagination the last time? I think it was something like the
Professor
ability.
Kalen Scoggins.
All right.
Great shirt.
I couldn't hear the rest of the part over Orlando, so I'll just call you Professor Gray Shirt if you don't mind.
Sure, why not?
All right,
That's
cool.
amazing.
Professor Gray Shirt, you said something about like it's a set of images in your mind that you can associate feelings to.
Being
and that's
able
imagination.
to form mental images.
Okay.
Images in your mind again, as the dictionary definition just said, not actually present to your senses at the time, although likely drawn from past sense experience.
Yeah. So a professor just called a student mental.
Quite
Can we
insightful,
please
gray
cut this
shirt.
from the? Yeah. So do you understand what he means by mental?
Yeah.
What does he mean?
Something non-existing in the physical realm.
Okay, yes. Purely intangible, purely material. So the idea is interesting because imagination is that which provides you immaterial images. But those images, according to this Webster's dictionary definition, comes from the physical bodily sensory perceptions that are in fact very tangible. However, the argument can be made that even imagination's images are also physical. Because you imagine them in terms of sights and sounds and, all the five senses that apply to it. So is there a physicality to imagination, or is imagination, and this is what came up, requack, quack, this is what came up on Tuesday, or is the imagination closer to intellect? Because I posed the question, we always hear about artificial intelligence. We never hear about artificial imagination.
So before we get into that, can I ask? So then everything that you imagine,
moving on.
Everything that you imagine is real.
That's an
Everything
interesting
that you
question.
can imagine. is
Well,
real.
because everything
it's real
you
in a
because
sense,
your
so-
imagination is only based on what you've experienced in real life, so there is a real component to it. At
So
least.
if I imagine unicorns, they're real.
because I mean, try to think of something that doesn't exist. You really can't because you have no basis on it.
Because even
Unicorns exist?
Well, horns exist and horses exist.
Horns exist in legend, and I mean it's close it's close enough to something that was real, like a horse that had a horn on it.
The
Like it's not
argument-
that crazy.
The argument usually is that imagination, even if the thing you imagine, like a unicorn, doesn't exist, in actuality right now, you're still drawing elements from sense experience of the
Yeah.
past. And
Yeah.
kind of
Oh, I get
compositing
what you
them
mean,
into
okay.
something, something you haven't actually experienced, but it's still, its components or elements are drawn from experience.
Interesting.
It allows you to move beyond experience, but still grounded in it.
Yeah. So when I compare the imagination to like an amalgamation, it's that you're taking, according to some traditional thinkers, ancient medieval traditional thinkers, potentially certain moderns, that what you're doing is you're taking it's like a certain arranged pastiche where you're taking different sensations and you're rearranging them like an artist would in your mind to create something like a unicorn. So you've seen a horn on a rhino before, and you've seen a horse. Now imagine if that rhino's horn were on a horse. That's what the imagination is. It takes prior sensory perceptions and it refashions them into non-fiction or rather fictional characters, but nonetheless they're drawn from everyday experience. That's a very ancient, I would say, antiquated understanding of imagination. But that's kind of what we get in
Could
that
we
dictionary.
apply that then to multiple dimensions? We can't fathom that.
No, I like that. How so?
Because how can we fathom the fourth dimension?
What do you think, Kalen?
I think it's a
What's
conceptual
what's a dimension?
things.
Well played. Well played.
No, I'm serious. Like that anytime this topic is brought up, it's never defined.
That's very true.
I don't know. Let me Google it real quick.
Good luck.
You can only really like define a dimension like by examples, right? Because like the first dimension, as far as like the scientific understanding of it is, as far as I'm aware, is the point. The second dimension, or sorry, the first dimension I think is the line.
Yeah.
And the second dimension is a point. Oh, no, or sorry,
So
a
they're-
shape. And the third dimension is form.
Yes.
So they're linear extensions, essentially.
Yeah.
Right, but even then you're talking about dimensions of, in this case, extended space.
Well, that's really the best way you could describe dimension, isn't it?
Well, no, my point is that dimension must be a relative term. You can't have dimension absolutely. There's a dimension of something, not just dimension.
So then, okay, I know what you mean. So I guess multiple dimensions of space, I guess you could say.
Just like you can say that, just like saying dimension is like saying aspect.
Yeah.
Right. Which is that there's no such thing as aspect in general. It's like, well, no, the first aspect. Okay, first aspect of what? Right. That has to be answered first.
Okay.
That's fair. I get that.
Yeah.
What was the discussion like in the actual club about imagination?
How did you just crack your knuckles without cracking them?
Oh,
How did
sorry.
you do that?
It was
How
it was
do you-
all, it was
how do you
off
do
screen.
that?
You just go. I'm not, you just
sorry.
go. You get that thumb. You push it over the knuckle there. You get it, and then you go through all the other knuckles, baby. It's the coolest way to pop your knuckles, and I'm not going to tell you how I learned it,
You didn't
because
know
if
that?
you learned it, you wouldn't think it was cool.
I always said I thought knuckle popping was a two-handed
Sometimes
endeavor.
I can just.
If
I can
you're a
just
coward,
roll my
yeah.
fist.
You're a coward. I'm not call me chicken. I think
Chickens that have knuckles.
They say cracking your knuckles makes your grip weaker.
Really?
Grip.
it makes your Greek whipper.
It makes your grip whipper.
That is another wives' tale, my friend.
Is it true?
It's a husband's tale.
I'll prove it to you.
It's a husband's tale.
All right, so so here's what we were working with. To your question, Dusty, it seemed like again, and I like this. A lot of the conversation so far in the philosophy, the Philanthropology Club, has leaned towards trying to figure out what anthropos is, what a human is. And so the imagination, the whole topic itself kind of came from a previous discussion where it was like, well, again, we're attributing intelligence. What is going on right here?
Oh, we just got
what's up, man?
Peanut Gallery.
Oh, hey, what's up, y'all?
Yo,
You want to
what
come
up?
in? You want to come in?
We're basically a zoo at this
Bring
point.
them in. Bring them in.
They're like, nah.
Tell them to
They're like,
go
nah.
around. You can come around.
Oh, they're coming for real?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thought they were ready to talk about philosophy.
Definitely. Jack, lock the door.
My mom
Yeah,
just
they're
texted me and told me not to pop my knuckles.
Oh my gosh.
Please tell your mom to leave a YouTube comment.
Yeah, she'll get extra credit.
She'll get you extra credit. I think they either went the other way or they went
They
out.
left.
Okay.
Cowards.
Well, yeah, seriously.
They saw Manzi and then skipped out.
Exactly. They were like, well, at any rate, before we digress, because we have less than half an hour left.
Oh, yikes. We
So-
plugged for too long.
Yeah, we did. There's never too long for plugs, though. The general conception was this: that what is it about imagination that relates to creativity, and what is the hey? What's on? Do you guys want to grab a mic?
Some guests here.
Oh, they actually came in.
There's an extra mic in here.
the world, they actually came in. That's hilarious.
It's a live radio broadcast. You can come in. You're more than. We're talking about what an imagination is. What do you think an imagination
we actually
is?
got 2 open mics right here.
Ah.
That's funny.
There's the camera.
Dude. That's so funny.
You can split a mic with me if you want.
Here's a chair right there.
Oh, let's plug your show. What's your show called? Are you Andre?
The opinion.
Oh,
What
well,
is-
shout out the host of The Opinionation. We got Andre here.
Wow, this is
glad you could be here. Yeah, no, it's great to have you here.
I'm supposed to have like headphones or something.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah,
if I'm
yeah,
too
yeah.
loud. Am I too loud?
No, you're
No,
good.
you're good. There's
It's good.
headphones right there.
I got controls
Yeah, you
right
guys got
over
to share
here.
one ear each.
One ear each. There you
I'm
go.
okay without the monitors.
So yeah, we're talking about just what the imagination is. Do you have a chair? You could take Dusty's bag off the chair and then while you're at it, stomp on it and throw it in the garbage disposal.
Wait, what were you guys talking about?
We're trying to figure out. So this is the Philosophy Club Radio Hour. So this is the Philosophy Club's weekly radio show, and what we do is we talk about what the topic was during our club meeting. And so Tuesday, we meet every Tuesday from 2 to 3, and this topic was, what is imagination? And we're continuing the discussion now. We're trying to figure out what an imagination is. And as you guys were walking in, we were like, well, if you look at the word imagination, you hear the word image or see the word image in it. And so it's like, well, the imagination is the result of what you take in from your 5 senses and then rearranging it in a way that is, and here's where we're at, possibly creative or poetic. So the question was, is it possible for the imagination to be replicatable in something like AI? We talk about artificial intelligence. We don't talk about the artificial imagination. Is the imagination something that is specifically human? Like, do dogs have an imagination? Do robots imagine?
Well, dogs definitely have an imagination because they
Really?
dream. Because they dream. They dream. Like you can see them running
Oh, that's
around. So I
interesting,
think
yeah.
so.
That's a good
I think
point.
at least some animals have.
Yeah, I
have
think
that
I would
ability.
agree.
artificial imagination. That's like an oxymoron. Like, I don't.
What'd you
think,
call me?
No,
Oh no, I think you heard it right.
Oh, yeah.
no, because when you said like, is it possible to have artificial imagination? I just like think like those contradict each other. Like,
Yeah, no, I
I
see what
don't
you're saying.
think that. I think that could be like an exclusive, like just anybody with a conscience. I mean, I don't know if dogs have conscience or animals, but yeah, I think that's really something exclusive to humans.
There's something that I've actually
Yeah.
looked at online. There are these completely artificial intelligence picture generators that will like take from a database of images and they'll make an entirely new image that's never been taken before of like a dog or a cat, and it looks very uncanny. Like it looks 99% like a cat, but then you look at it and you'll see like a little fold somewhere, and that's not quite a cat.
Yeah.
But that really is more or less what the human senses are. Like we have a database of images in our head that we use to form other images, which is our imagination. So is it really any different that a computer can have a database of images and create completely new ones out of it?
Okay,
Yeah, I
so
hear you.
so let me go to what you're saying. So you're saying, can a computer take a relatively mass amount of images and just make something completely new?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and absolutely, it is completely possible. But it has to be in a certain algorithm, of course, to say, okay, well, if you can make an image out of these things, what would you make? And then it could come up with 1,000,
Yeah.
different things. And especially with when you come to a 3D printer, they'll have to take those 1,000 images and actually make whatever project that you want it to print out. I wanted to go to there was a comment that was, I can't remember where it's from, but if you imagine aliens and what they look like,
Yeah.
usually we'll see them with either big heads or one eye.
The illegal
Like
ones,
the
the foreigners?
stereotypical. Okay.
Oh wow.
Come on, man! Wow.
Oh, you meant like Martians? Oh my God.
Yeah, Martians. So we would imagine what they look like, but we can only imagine that because of the senses or the things that we can put together what we see here on Earth.
But don't you think like the media kind of shaped how we think about like aliens, like
Yeah,
the
definitely.
stereotypical
Definitely,
aliens
yeah.
and stuff like that?
Shut up, Blink-182.
And
Yeah.
I think you made a good point to say that anything that's conscious can have an imagination. And so then I think that's where we have to ask, can artificial intelligence be conscious? And if that is the case, if they can have an imagination, then it's not even really artificial imagination, but just imagination. period.
Imagination itself.
It
call.
also depends on like how you define what even is conscious.
Exactly.
I was
And
thinking
then
the same
that's
thing.
true.
Whenever you brought up this idea of artificial intelligence versus artificial imagination, I think if you strip away the term artificial and just look at intelligence versus imagination in actual organic creatures like human beings, and the point that was made about dogs, having dreams and things like that.
Exactly.
I think if you look at anything that can show some type of emotion, some type of anticipatory emotion. Take fear, for example. If you look at a dog who's looking into the darkness in the forest or whatever, and he's nervous about something, or that's a dog who is imagining what the possibilities of what could be there, things that could be, that could interact with him. Essentially, it has the ability to think in time. It knows that something bad could happen in the future. And so I think if you decouple this idea of artificial away from these things, if we come to the point where computers are able to make decisions based on what they think would be better for some kind of future scenario for themselves or for people or whatever the purpose would be, I think it's easy to imagine that coupled with that is imagination, because they wouldn't be able to make conscious decisions about a better outcome unless they imagined a not better outcome or various outcomes. I think intelligence and imagination kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think also,
Great point.
like, imagination has been developed for us in nature. And it's like almost as this need to survive. It's like for us to survive, we had to have thought, oh, what can happen if this goes wrong or if that goes wrong? That involved imagination. And so then imagination then stemmed to creativity and so on and so forth. I feel like people will kind of try to distinguish the two as if they're not necessarily hand in hand. But I think you posed a better question. A good question is, say, like, is everything that's intelligent imaginative?
He didn't want to say it was better than him.
No.
You want to say
Sure,
it
it's
was
better.
It was also
it was
good.
better. How about that?
I think by its nature it is, because the intelligence, at least to me, and this isn't
Thanks for coming
textbook
in.
definition, but I see intelligence as the ability to imagine different outcomes and come up with different solutions to those outcomes or different possibilities from those outcomes. And I think in order to fit that definition of intelligence, you need to have the ability to entertain things other than what is exactly in front of you at that moment, and
True.
that is imagination, is it not?
Exactly. Yeah. Good point.
Okay. I want to go to, if you take the artist, for example, one of the many greatest Imagineers, that's arguably one of the greatest. You learn lines, you learn shapes, you learn different types of aspects of not only two-dimensional design but 3D dimensional design, and you have to take those concepts and try to create something out of it, and you can create something that is comparatively something that we wouldn't think of on a day-to-day basis, but it's still an Imagineer thing. Take Walt Disney, for example, one of the greatest Imagineers of our time, and we knew a mouse had round ears, but when you see his logo, you see 3 circles in certain areas. You imagine Mickey Mouse's face, and you know who that is.
It's interesting. Yeah.
True point. Good point.
So I guess the other side of it would be this then. What about what's called the poetic imagination? So this is an imagination that is considered to be, how to put this, not necessarily derived from sensation, but derived from something more
Thanks
like
for coming,
intelligence.
man.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Dude, he was really insightful too.
That was great,
What
yeah.
the heck?
Dude, what a cameo. Oh my God.
Nice.
Well, now the insight rests on you, buddy. No problem. He's like, no problem. I love the confidence. I wish I had that. I'm joking. I have it in droves. Anyways, I do think this. The poetic imagination might be something that's a little bit, I don't know, not different, but of a different sort. Not entirely different. And by that I mean, the Greek word for poiesis, or the Greek word poiesis means to make. It just means to build. And, poetry is the Greek, equivalent to saying, hey, what's the most difficult thing to build? It's to build with words. It's to build poetically. Oh, yeah, you can jump over there, for sure.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, and so words, of course, they connote or they evoke certain images, but not necessarily so. So if I say something like, I don't know, my mind is on fire, you understand that I'm not speaking literally.
Yeah.
An idiom.
Yeah, well, yeah, idioms as well. But in this case, I mean, just a simple metaphor. My mind is on fire. The fact is, my mind is not on fire. But the metaphor is that, well, what? I mean, the fact that you can make sense of what I just said suggests that it's not necessarily an intelligence thing. You're not quantifying numbers. You're not doing long division. You're making a meaningful connection in a poetic way, in a literary, or again, how to put this? An artistic or creative way?
Non-literal.
Maybe that's not fair.
Isn't intelligence just having knowledge, and doesn't that involve knowledge to create those?
How so? I think you're onto
You have
something.
to have a base principle of how to create. I mean, that's
But you also have to know what a fire is.
yeah, knowledge. in
Yeah, I
itself.
think the metaphor expresses. It seems that the metaphor expresses a concept, and so yeah, that's which is distinct from strictly mental images, and yet
Yes.
they may be distinct yet not separable in that actual instance.
Well, what do you mean by that? That's interesting. Distinct but not separable.
Well, yeah, you can have things that are distinct and truly different, yet not actually capable of separate or independent existence.
Like you and me.
Sure. Well, no, so think about the trilaterality of a triangle versus its triangularity. So a triangle has
Everybody just
a triangle has three angles, right? But it also has three sides.
Yes.
Now, you're never going to have a trilateral figure that's not also a triangle. Yet triangularity and trilaterality are two distinct things.
I
even
think
if
of
they're
a
never
pyramid
separate.
when you say that.
What'd you say?
I think of a pyramid.
Oh,
when you
yeah,
say
yeah. Yeah, and you image something, exactly.
Yeah, and a mental image can help with that, and yet the two concepts there are distinct, even if they're never actually separable.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so, even if they can never exist independently of each other, there's still different aspects or dimensions, if you will.
Well, put it this way. Can you imagine something that's triangular but not trilateral?
He just said that's not possible.
Well, but why isn't it possible? Like
Because we've
that's
possibly never seen it.
because again, it's not, conceptually speaking, you cannot have it. It's an impossibility. But I thought imagination was all about imagining what's impossible.
Well, there's something like an H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Like he describes
I
like
love
that
H.P.
cosmic,
Lovecraft.
big nerd, horrible racist, mind you. Make sure to read Shadow of Innsmouth with the knowledge that is about miscegenation.
Yeah. Keep going.
He like tries to describe something indescribable. I swear, man, I'm gonna slaughter you. I'm gonna skin you, and I'm gonna make a lampshade out of you. No violence. But he tries to make something physically unimaginable.
We call the cops. Yeah.
But he only puts it in relative terms. He either describes it as something horrifying that when you look at it, you simply just you just break, or he describes like Cthulhu as something big, as scaly, with the head of an octopus and like big beefy appendages and wings of a bat.
You met my ex-girlfriend?
Yeah. Wow. No, you wonder why she's ex now. But
It was the tentacles, wasn't it?
but
Man.
those are like in physical mental image terms that you can actually make something out of, like the fact that you can make art out of Cthulhu as opposed to something that you can't physically imagine. It just goes to testament like the limits of our actual imagination. Like even like the trippiest psychedelic imagery, it's still made of components that are perfectly logical that you can think about, that you can like deconstruct and make things, but there's nothing completely unique that has no bearing on your experience.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's nothing new under the sun?
Pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, the reason that I brought that up in the first place with Jeff's metaphor, my mind is on fire, is that it seems to me that if using that as an example of poetic imagination, using metaphor, other things like that, it seems that imagination in this usage of the term seems to be a bit more conceptual than other usage of the term. That we're kind of maybe blurring the lines between the two. That you're kind of seeing an interplay or kind of parallelism, I guess, between mental images and then actual concepts, strictly speaking.
Jack, can you play blurred lines at this point in the show?
Please don't.
Yeah, I think you're making an excellent point. And that's actually, this came up a lot in different ways in the Philosophy Club, which is that where do you draw the line between imagination and intelligence, as well as sensation and imagination? maybe those lines aren't necessarily so distinct.
Maybe they're actually related more than we
Yeah,
know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
Like
like
they're distinct but not separable.
Because when you when you have like dreams, a lot of that stuff is emotionally connected. Like
Oh, interesting.
your imagination is connected very deeply to your emotions. It's connected to like every part of you, like even physically. If you think about something, if you have like a mental image, even if it's not like fully formed, if it's like a concept that you have a deep emotional attachment to, you can feel it physically.
If you ever had a nightmare, it's like you should be able to relate to this.
Or like a night terror.
Or a night terror. Some people who even when they wake up,
It's not over.
not really woke up, but like you're in that night terror. But yet like your eyes are like maybe a sliver open, but you can't get your body to respond to come up.
Sleep
But-
paralysis.
Sleep paralysis.
But oh yeah, and then
Succubi.
sometimes you wake up
Incubus.
You wake up screaming, and you wake up just
Not sure what world you're in.
huh?
You're not sure what's real and what's not, right?
Yeah,
That's the
you
imagination.
you have bad experiences, and I know me and my veteran brothers, we sometimes it's like that, because we go overseas and we've seen certain things, and then sometimes we'll wake up in a cold sweat, and it can get really bad. But like you said, when you have those, and you can wake up from possibly a very, very good experience. You can say, "Oh, I had a great dream," and sometimes those dreams will happen, and you're about to get to the sweet part, and if you're a guy, if you're a guy, you hate it when that alarm clock comes in. You're back in exactly.
Oh no.
That alarm clock. What? The
What alarm clock? No, and the alarm clock breaks, and then you're happy, but you're mad at the same time. I'm happy that it's shut up, but I'm mad that I can't go back to sleep and I have to get up and do whatever I got to do just to make ends meet.
I know.
Darn
Go teach philosophy or
responsibility.
something.
Curse you again.
yeah, it's look. I this didn't come up at all. Strangely enough, but I love it. The connection between dreams and imagination. Like, I mean, I think you're right about that. Look, I had a nightmare this morning. Like, I woke up, I didn't know what was real and what wasn't for a few seconds. I don't know if I know, Dusty, you heard this story. I had a near-death experience recently. I know, Kaylin, you've heard this story.
Yeah, you told it kind of poorly in class.
I thought I did a great job telling it. At any rate, it was like that. Like, I woke up this morning and like I thought I saw a dark just outline, like death, like the Grim Reaper, like over my bed, and I actually went bah! Like I yelled, and it turns out that of course there's nothing there. But the fact remains.
No.
Well, here's the thing. Why would I have that image?
Yeah, why not the
Presents
image of
it.
a pizza?
Yeah, I was about to say delivering you a pizza, probably.
He says, "Eat it as quickly as possible." For those that don't know,
First of all, the
choked
pepperoni
on a
monster
pizza.
is the sign of death, so we already know this.
The Noid, isn't that what he was called? The Noid. That's too.
Oh
old.
yeah, the Noid. There you go,
Thank
the Noid.
The Noid.
Oh, for those of you who don't know who the Noid is, that was like an old Domino's mascot who used to ruin your pizza.
Yeah, he used to ruin. He used to destroy your pizzas.
Boomer alert.
Batman did that too, right? I am vengeance. I am the Noid.
Yeah. So I mean, the idea is this: that maybe your imagination. It seems like potentially your imagination is working while your conscious self-awareness is not. So if you want to tie in imagination to intellect, it seems kind of funny because your intellect usually is working when you're awake, and yet when you're asleep, you're not thinking. You're dreaming. You're dreaming images. You're conjuring up
Are
images.
you not thinking while you're sleeping? Is that
I mean, that's a good question, actually.
Well, that depends on how much
I think your
how
brain's
much of like a
functioning.
lucid dreaming Chad you are. Because I can't get a grip of it, so my stuff always goes crazy. I can never like actually control my dreams, but I know people who can do it like fully every
Oh
night.
yeah, you
What?
just gotta- you
Really?
have to take
Yeah.
you have to take a deep breath in your dreams and have to be like, wait a minute, I know.
Yeah, you have to
this
make
is
it a
real.
routine,
just
so you
have
have
to
to like
become-
start building to it, and I'm too
just-
lazy to do
you
it.
just
It's
have
only
to
happened
become
to me a handful
aware
of times.
that you're in your dream.
yeah,
happened to
yeah,
you?
just become aware, guys.
Like,
Come
you
on.
can
6 or
say-
7 times,
If you
maybe?
if you
Yeah.
can like they said supposedly if you pick a spot in your house to remember that okay I'm dreaming right now and you're awake and then when you're in your dream that same feeling or that same sense is going to come back to you and you'll become aware.
You know,
See, for me, that's like just trying to, like,
it's
look-
funny because I actually, in my dreams, like I have my dreams have its own map. Like it's funny
cool.
because when I dream, like my grandma's house, I was like, okay, in my dreams I know it looks like this. In reality, I know it looks like this. Okay, so I know how to get to where I need to go from here. And if I turn this corner, I know it's a nightmare. If I turn this corner, I know it's
that's crazy.
joy.
Whoa.
No, I can
Yeah.
relate to that completely. I didn't know. I've never met anybody else who also has that. So that's really cool.
Hey, Manzi, by the way,
Yeah.
dream psychologists believe the dream of the devil or death is a reflection of something negative in your life.
Oh, thanks, Captain
Indicates
Obvious.
anxiety and stress. Yeah, no, I was just trying to help them out.
If you're thinking about death, it might not be a good
I'm trying
thing.
to help
let's
them
set
out.
sail.
He's trying to
It's
see each other.
anxiety or
I
stress.
didn't know that chair was also a
Yeah.
couch.
That's very good.
I think that like the uncontrolled dreams are the closest you can get to like pure imagination, where you're making something unique. Because when you wake up and you try to remember it, you can't exactly remember everything. You can only remember like the briefest concepts. And I think that is where the uniqueness comes in, because everything in that dream is like it's pieced together from nothing, really,
Yeah.
because you're asleep, so you don't have anything around you.
Yeah. Something's doing the.
And
piecing
when you wake
together.
up, it's all gone. And so it's unique. I think that's the closest we can get to like true unaffected
Well,
imagination.
couldn't you say that it stems from your subconscious mind?
Yeah, that too.
So
but
then,
that's why I think
is that,
it's the
so is that
closest. I
really
don't think
coming
it's
from
perfect.
nothing?
There's something I think we're avoiding here, and you had mentioned it. You said, and I'm probably not going to even quote it right, but you were saying how our imagination is more in effect when we're asleep than when we're in awake. Well, what about
Potentially.
hallucinogenic reactions and the relationship between imagination and intellect? I remember a movie called The Beautiful Mind. This man was a genius in mathematics.
John Nash.
Yes. And he saw images or people in reality while he was awake. And so you were saying
Yeah.
how you were seeing the Grim Reaper in your dreams. And here's my argument is, when you are hallucinating, is that part of your imagination, and how does that affect your intellect? Because if
Totally.
I like for me, if I see something that I'm afraid of walking around near me, but nobody else sees it, how is that affecting my intellect or my imagination? Is my imagination running away from me because I don't have the hold on it that you unconsciously have, or is it is it something worse?
Well, couldn't you
What
say
gives
that?
that away?
Well,
Yeah.
couldn't you just say then that imagination is an expression of your emotions, or rather your subconscious in a way? Is that because Manzi is feeling a certain negative way, that's why this apparition of death essentially appeared to him?
Nice vocab. It's kind of cute.
Well, no, I think.
Did no one notice what just happened?
Don't worry about it. They'll see it. They'll see it in post. Yeah, I listen. I love this because on the one hand, Orlando, going back to your points, you know, look, I've studied this to some extent. I've published on dream interpretation and Freudian and Jungian interpretational frameworks.
So take that.
Nerd.
So, but no, but I'm saying definitely, no doubt.
So everyone else shut up.
Chad's in the house now.
I'm the genius. You listen to me.
Yeah,
I interpret dreams based on Freud.
I'm a shaman, is what I'm saying. Shaman's. So yeah, now that the children are done, the adults can talk. No, I'm joking.
When I'm in the Nobel Prize, don't tell me nothing.
All I'm saying is this: that no, what you guys are saying it's spot on. Like this idea of, on the one hand, coming up with certain images seems to be an intellectual thing. Like there's a reason why your mind is presenting you with certain imagery that has connotations to your own individual context and will evoke certain emotions in you that presumably tells you a message that you need to improve things, or at least brings to mind things that might be, I don't know, concerning you, but you're ignoring, or you're not ready to really consider yourself explicitly, and that's the Freudian take. But the other side of it is this: you know, if you want to talk about hallucinations or like oases or something like that, which do you trust more? Do you say to yourself, "Okay, imagination, time to stop showing me things that I know aren't real.
Right.
Listen to the intellect," or do you say, "Hey, intellect, I'm literally seeing something, and I think I need to take it seriously that I'm actually witnessing something right now that I know on some conceptual level can't be there, but my imagination is telling me, well, I have to believe it because I'm perceiving it." Like, what takes priority? It seems like
I
intellect.
think that's the line between distortion and reality. I mean,
Interesting.
That's kind of crazy.
I don't. I think that
It's literally crazy.
I think that if you're hallucinating things, then you can't really appeal to that intellect because you may like know it logically. You may, and this happens to like a lot of disorders. Like you may know it logically that it's not there, but in your subconscious, your brain is physically telling you that it exists no matter what. And intellectually you can say, no, but it's not real. It can't be real. But your brain and your body thinks in every way that is real and it is a threat.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could give you one on mirages. Who's ever been driven down the road on a hot day or something like
yeah,
that?
yeah,
And
definitely.
you see water on the road,
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay, I know it's not real because and then you start seeing reflections. It's corresponding with the reflections, and then you start driving closer and closer, and then the water just it's gone.
Well, those reflections are real. I remember studying light or optics, and it's actually because the compressed air, because the road's really hot, so it changes the way that light reflects. So it is technically real, but I can see where you're coming from.
Right.
Like if you're so thirsty in the desert that you see like that you see those fake reflections, you think that's water.
Right.
Arguably, then that's not a mistake of perception, but a mistake of judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
like you said, it's a mirage.
Yeah, it's up to you to decide whether that's real or not.
And I think what you're talking about earlier about having this completely fabricated imagination, I think the only way is like through hallucinations, maybe through like, I guess you could say hallucinogenic drugs.
Are you supporting hallucinogenic
No,
drugs? Because I am. Yo, Philosophy Club, can we all get some ayahuasca?
No.
DMT.
And just like that, I'm gone.
Go do shrooms, go do acid.
Well, Android doesn't realize that we all took mushrooms before this podcast. So,
I wasn't
what
here.
did we
They
say?
did.
I wasn't
I am
here.
sober.
I
Do
did.
not come after me, please.
That was obviously a joke.
You can be the ayahuasca mediator.
was a
Look,
Only kidding.
look, I'm still in the Air Force. If they find anything on me, man, and I got to do a test, I'm done.
Sack.
Well, the idea is this: that a lot of people will try, like a lot of artists, especially or creatives, at least romantic, as the legend goes.
Whoa.
The reason to that was a good plug, is that they try to because myth is next.
I'm talking about Never mind.
What did he say?
Nothing. Continue.
He mumbled.
Okay.
Mumbles and fumbles.
Listen, Dusty's mom, I don't know how to break it.
Yeah,
to
so
you,
I
but,
got a text from my mom saying not to do drugs. It just said, no.
I know it. Shout out to our one
Still want
listener.
to go to college?
You shouldn't do drugs. Absolutely not. Anyways, listen, the reason why certain professional artists, quote unquote, would maybe try to dabble in this kind of biochemical, potpourri would be to that made no sense. Would be to try to invoke the imagination. It would be like, listen, I have writer's block or painter's block or whatever's block, philosopher's block. Jean-Paul Sartre, mescaline, and so let me see if I can do something to help catalyze or spur on creativity, as though your imagination is like your muscles, where it's like, well, they're kind of dead. What can I do to rehabilitate it? Like, what can I do to rehabilitate my imagination to get it functioning again? That's a really biological way to understand imagination, but interestingly enough, a lot of artists and poets think of it like that.
Yeah, like it gives you a kick.
Yeah, like it's some sort of
Like
necessity.
it's coffee in the morning.
Exactly, yeah. Which is,
No, thankfully not.
Oh, ouch.
Just kidding.
Well,
Hurt my
I-
feelings.
I-
So then can we say drugs are steroids for artists?
I mean, yeah, kind of.
I think that's what some artists say.
And even steroids by themselves are bad. So
And so here's what's so interesting is that, we talk about the imagination like it's this kind of abstract thing, it's abstract capacity, or this entity, but science has proven that the imagination is very much tied to your just your general overall biological functionality. So if you're not functioning biologically, you're not imagining really well. Or the other side of it is, if you pump your body with a lot of poison, ayahuasca, then you will suddenly, I don't know, become more creative. Like, this doesn't really make sense to me either, I'll be honest with you.
okay, so I know when a lot of us have been kids before. I don't know. Have you been a kid?
Most of us.
I'm not sure about that one.
Never.
I think it still is.
Yeah, I can't remember when I was a kid last. So, but when we were kids, some of us used to play with toys, right?
Yeah.
And I think that also has a factor in triggering the imagination, because
This
I don't
came
know
up,
how
by the
many
way.
scenarios I came up with playing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or playing with Power Rangers or whatever have you.
Yeah, with my Bionicles.
Exactly. There you go. And then you would make up scenarios, you make up problems, and you're using your imagination to that effect.
Absolutely.
As far as like, okay, what conflict can happen right here? And I think a lot of artists or writers who do either kid shows or even when they do movies, what they do is that they'll sculpture the character or characters, and they'll actually try to position themselves in certain positions or how they're going to focus the camera angle and everything like that. And they're essentially playing, with toys, but it actually helps to create a story. So I do think that imagination actually did help with that as kids when we were younger. It was a trigger, but nobody ever thought about it.
That's the narrative imagination that Kearney's talking about, Dusty. Yeah, and this came up in the guise of imaginary friends. Like, have you ever had an imagine? Look, okay, we're actually out over time, but let me just say
I tried,
this.
but they left me.
Wow. They don't know that I'm
just like a real
handcuffed right now.
Yeah.
And so I brought up the fact that I was an only child, and I was jealous that people had brothers and sisters to kind of hang out with. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this imaginary friend thing out. I'm going to try to create a friend for myself, and I wasn't good at it. Like, I don't know how to put it. Like, I couldn't sustain it, and so.
Me too.
Your imaginary friend didn't like you?
See, I had a sister. That's why I also tried this.
Your imaginary friend didn't like you?
But here's what it was.
Actually, no, I couldn't do it either. I tried.
Really?
Yeah, it was the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. That's
I tried
interesting.
it. I wasn't good at it. I couldn't make it
Couldn't
work.
get it either.
But here's the question: is that a weak imagination, or is that a powerful intellect who understands this isn't real?
I don't think it's a weak
my boss
imagination. I
asks,
think
it's
you're like, you
powerful.
know what? I don't even like my imaginary friend, so forget it. Like you knew what reality was. So
Well, I just say it for the following reason. It seems like imagination can serve a purpose.
Yes.
And so
Yeah,
this came up
absolutely.
a lot at the meeting. And Orlando, you talked about this a lot, was the idea that, even imaginations have to serve a certain end. They're like, the reason you try to come up with solutions is because you have a certain problem that you're trying to figure out. And that's really what triggers the imagination. And so the imagination and the intellect really are kind of one and the same on some level. And maybe the intellect itself is just so expansive that the imagination is one capacity of it, or the other way around.
Distinct but not separable.
Yeah, I think he's making a good point with that.
By the way, shout outs to Orlando for talking despite the fact he's been fighting a throat thing all week, and I like that he's here and he's continuing to push
Joe, do I
forward.
need to get quarantined?
I'm not really good.
You might. All right. Well,
You're already sick.
we are 3 minutes over our broadcast, so we should probably wrap it up.
Wait, do we even have a show after this?
Oh no, we don't. Let's keep it rolling for another
Yeah,
45
might as
minutes.
well. Until 5. 2-hour show now. That's what
Usually
that
I
is.
should get started early, I think.
Jack, break out the Molly. Okay.
He really said,
and I'm sweating.
don't worry. He really said, "Bring out my mommy." That's
what I said.
he
Exactly.
yeah.
You have her kidnapped, Jack. You
That's
told
what
me
it
that.
was.
Just want you to know, my mom's proud of all of you. Especially texting me.
Oh, thank
Especially you, Manzi. I know you need a mother figure.
Oh my gosh.
Dusty's mom is like, I want you to drop that class. All right, folks. Well,
Next week's topic: the devouring mother.
that's a myth.
Talking about Freud.
Talking about Freud.
Look, if she come in as a guest next week and bring cookies, I'm coming back.
Dusty, I'll be real. Your mom is totally welcome to be a guest on the show.
Okay, cool. She said no Molly, though.
Okay. I mean, she's welcome to replace you on the show. Is actually what I'm saying.
Oh,
All
wow.
right, guys. No, nobody can replace Dusty. All right. So we're out of time here, but do you guys want to go around and make kind of final points? Any last things that you want to maybe waiting to say, but haven't got a chance to yet? Any final thoughts on what the imagination might be? And then we'll kind of wrap up, do some additional plugs, what have you.
I think we covered like a ton of bases.
We really did.
Like, I think we really got pretty deep into it for an hour, and I really liked having you on. Your name's Andre, right?
Thanks. It's Manson.
No, my name's Devin. This guy just
Devin.
wanted to be a jerk. So
Wait, what are you talking about?
You're with
I swear to God, I thought it says Andre right there.
Wednesday at 4.
Devin Winston.
Oh, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong
There you
show.
go.
That's generally my fault.
I honestly thought you were trying to be a jerk.
I
was
swear I
like,
was
did he call me
not.
Andre because I'm black? I'm just like, oh my gosh. I think he's trying to be funny. Okay, but I'm gonna laugh at it. Whatever.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice. Because look, you see, there's Andre, Dave. My bad. So shout out Dave.
Devin.
Devin's after.
Shout out.
There he goes again. See, okay, now I'm thinking it's on purpose.
No, it's not.
Shout out.
Thanks for hanging out, Jamal.
Watch your show.
All right. No, shout out Devin's show from 3. Is it 3 or 4?
It's
4 to
4
5.
o'clock from the. My show's called The Opinion Nation. My name is Devin, by the way.
Well, tell us about your show.
Next week, Manzi learns how to read a grid.
Next week, Manzi takes sensitivity courses.
So
Next week, it's for a new job. Yeah.
So my name is Devin Johnson. I'm from the show called The Opinion Nation that is on Wednesdays at 4. The Opinion Nation, where I take your opinion, you get my opinion. We talk about a variety of topics. It could be about anything. If you got a topic you want to talk about, let me know. And
That sounds awesome.
we are gonna get to the source. After you give your opinion, I give my opinion. We'll talk to an expert. We'll go to we'll go do an experiment. It doesn't even matter. We're gonna try to get to the source, and the whole point is to make sure we make an informed decision. Just
That
because
sounds
you have an
great.
opinion doesn't mean it's right. I'll even be wrong on my opinions too. But it's the Opinion Nation. We can talk about anything.
He's talking to you, Orlando. Yeah.
Can I just say, you really got the voice of radio.
Dude, yes, you
Oh,
have
we
a
can
golden
do it
voice.
every week 'cause I just want to listen.
Could you do ads for my show?
No problem. I'll plug it in.
All right. Any other final thoughts on the imagination, or just additional plugs?
Friday 2 to 3 got my show When the World Turned. Talking about World War I. You didn't learn enough about
World
it.
War I.
Hope you're ready.
And spoiler alert: there is a sequel.
The sequel's not the sequel doesn't quite live up to the hype, really. It ends on a real abrupt one.
It does.
It does. It does.
I do have a quick thing
Yeah,
for
please.
the imagination. So this is just my opinion. So the imagination is made up of a lot of things you have experienced or have seen, whether you have seen it a long time ago, whether it was in your subconscious and you have plugged it away and you haven't seen it for a long time, whether you've seen it once, twice, 3 times, or not, or very rarely. Your imagination is something that you can control when you are awake. When you are dreaming, it is something to relieve stress, as a study has shown. I will find the source as soon as I stop sounding stupid. But
You're not sounding stupid.
but when you go to sleep, your brain is actually solving problems. So when you are dreaming, it's a way for your brain to relieve stress and actually deal with certain problems. If you can't sleep, sometimes it's maybe too much, and you may have to just accept the fact and not lie to yourself about certain things. So make sure that if there's something that you need as far as help on with the problem, make sure you talk to somebody, and be mindful of being an optimist and also being real with your optimism.
That was powerful.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about dreams. For the record, I think that again, if you're dreaming about something and it doesn't make sense to you, it's because your subconscious is trying to get you to recognize an issue that maybe you're not consciously ready to recognize, and that's why it presents itself to you in incognito, like in dream form. I think that's a great point. Jack,
why I always
can
wake
we
up
make that
sad?
my point somehow in post production? Caleb, what do you got, buddy?
Make his voice all more whiny.
I think we're going to see artificial imagination way before we ever see artificial conceptual intelligence.
I completely agree. And so,
Yeah.
I guess what would that entail? What would that mean?
What entail?
How could you have artificial intelligence without artificial conception, or artificial imagination without artificial conceptual intelligence?
Well, because imagination is not grounded in concepts; it's grounded in sense images, which we have ways of capturing artificially.
Would you say concepts are grounded in imagination?
I'd say they're abstracted from
Okay.
sense experience.
Right on.
The universal drawn out of the particular.
Exactly. And that was the point you were making last time, too, as well. Somehow we came upon it. Same point. All right, great. Well, what can I say? I was really intimidated by the last point he made, and I don't know how to end this on a higher flourish. I mean,
dang.
you closed it out so beautifully. Now I'm just kind of
Can we
sputtering.
replace Manzi?
I think that's my vote.
No,
I think he's right.
we need comic relief.
2 shows.
Anyways, Orlando, anything you want to push for the Psych Ducks or anything like that? Any the art club or anything? Orlando's he's involved in everything. He's like the
No,
philosophy
I'm
club
not
ambassador. He
involved at
really
all.
is. By the way, I have your book. You left your book in class today.
Oh, seriously? Oh,
I have it with me, yeah.
You better give it to me. No, that's the end. The end.
Okay. Well, in that case, again, I'm Professor Manzi. I'm the faculty advisor of the Philanthropology Club, along with Dr. Tim Sullivan, who's the anthropology professor. And this is the Philosophy Club Radio Hour, Season 7, Episode 4. Every semester is a season. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We're the voice of Richland College. The Philosophy Club meets every Tuesday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock in EO 32. That's El Paso Hall, room 32. And every Thursday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., we have the Philosophy Club Radio Hour, where we recap the debate/discussion as it took place on Tuesday, and then push it even further, as far as we can, in fact. So, views expressed in the show are our own, unless otherwise stated, and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the Dukud. I have a tagline for my show, and it's like I have different guests say it every time.
Can I say it?
He raised his hand first.
Yes, because I'm looking right at you.
I'll do it. Okay, as long as I won't, incriminate myself, I'll say it.
The tagline is "I sell ecstasy." No, I'm joking. The tagline is "Think about it."
All right.
You just said it.
Think about it, everybody.
Okay. This is the Philosophy Club, reminding you to think about it.
Nobody else said anything. That was perfect.
Wow, I mean, he kind of took the words out of my mouth.
Well, wait, that was what you were going to say.
No.